And so by this point, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. I'm thinking, is this guy like setting me up or something? What's up guys, it's Jordan. That was smooth, huh? Today I'm gonna be telling you guys about the time that I got lost in New York City. So this all started back on April Fool's Day last year, 2018. I was just bored, I was just chilling in my room or whatever, and I decided to look on Google Flights. This is when I first really started to get into traveling. So I had just started working again, so I had a little bit of money, and I had just turned 18, so I felt like I was on some grown man shit, and I learned about how to travel for cheap and everything, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. But I was looking at Google Flights, and I found a flight, a round trip from Dallas to New York and back for $128, Spirit Airlines. So naturally, I jumped on that. I didn't really know anything about Spirit Airlines or any of that. I did some research and I saw all the bad reviews, but I didn't really care, to be honest. For $128, come on now. I booked my flight and I was supposed to leave Dallas on May 19th and then come back to Dallas May 23rd, I believe. In the meantime, I booked my accommodation and everything. I'm gonna get into that in a second. Between the time I booked the flight to basically the day of the flight, I was so hyped. I was just telling everybody about it, oh, I'm going to New York, I'm going to New York by myself and everything. I felt like the man. Then the day of the flight actually came. I had to navigate through the airport by myself for the first time, so that was a little bit confusing. I only had one carry-on bag though. I didn't have any check-in bags or anything, so I guess that made it a little bit easier. But yeah, I had 3 hours of sleep that night, but I mean, I was just going off straight adrenaline. So I got on the plane, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost passed out when we took off. Alright, so I'm editing this video right now, and I just now noticed how often I say the word like. And it never really... Wait, did I just say it again? I never really noticed it until this video right here. And I'm too lazy to go back to the beginning. But starting right now, I'm gonna start a like counter just to see how many times I say it. You'll see the number on the bottom of the screen. So yeah, stay to the end to figure out how many times I say it, I guess. Alright, now back to the video. And I don't think it's because I was nervous. I think just the way the planes take off, I don't know, it just messes with me for some reason. So yeah, the flight lasted around 3 to 3.5 hours, I believe. When we got to New York, it was raining, and it was really cloudy and everything, but as we were landing, through the clouds, if you looked really hard, you could see the buildings and the taxis and everything. So that's when it really hit me, oh my god, I'm in New York for the first time. I'm by myself in New York. That was just, there's no words that I can use to describe that feeling. So plane landed, thankfully, came out into the airport, and I didn't really know what to do next. I had been asking the people next to me, how do I get to Brooklyn, because the airport that we landed at was in Queens and the place I was staying at was in Brooklyn. So yeah, I asked a few of the airport employees, and they basically told me that I needed to get on this shuttle that'll take me to the metro station, and then when I got there, I bought a metro card, which looks like this. So I got my metro card, and I basically used Google Maps on my phone to tell me which subway to take or whatever. And bro, the train system in New York, I don't know, maybe some of you are from a big city or whatever and you're used to that, but in Dallas we got the DART train, and there's only a few lines basically. So I get to New York, and I'm seeing the subway station's got 4 floors and stuff. So I'm tripping, bro. And then mind you, I haven't eaten since breakfast. That was at 6 a.m. By this time it was 3 p.m. So I'm just trying to get to the place that I'm staying at. I used Google Maps to find the station that I needed to get to and the stop that I needed to get off at. And the thing about Google Maps is that it runs your battery down super quick. Maybe it's just my phone, I don't know, but it runs your battery down like quick. Like we're talking like if you use it for like an hour straight, your phone will be dead. So by the time I got to the place, which I'm gonna get into that in a second, don't worry, I had like probably 10% battery left. And on top of that, it was probably around 4 o'clock maybe, and me and my friend who lives in New York right now, we had agreed to meet up in Times Square at 7 p.m. I believe. Mind you, I'm staying in Brooklyn, Times Square is in Manhattan. It's like an hour and a half subway ride. And that's if you don't get lost, which by the title, I'm sure you already know I got lost. But I was staying in this lady's apartment. There's this app called Couchsurfing, and basically you ask people if you can stay at their house for free. So I stayed at a complete stranger's house. She had all good reviews and everything. I know some of y'all are probably gonna think like I'm crazy for doing that, but I didn't care. I saved like hella money by not having to pay for hotels or hostels or anything. And people that I stayed with, because like it wasn't just me and her, it was like other people too. It was like people from around the world. Like there was a dude from Australia, a girl from Russia, a girl from like Kazakhstan or something. I didn't even know that Kazakhstan existed before I met her. There was just people from all around the world, and we were all just like in this one room just talking. And usually I don't like talking to random people, but I don't know, this was different. It was just super chill, and I'm pretty sure I was the youngest person there. Yeah, so anyways, I talked with, some of the other couch surfers, and I charged my phone for maybe 30 minutes. I want to say 30 minutes. It probably got to like 50% battery. So obviously I had to use Google Maps again to get to Times Square, except this time me and my friend, we had agreed to meet up at, I believe it was called like the 49th Street subway station. So in my head I was thinking like, okay, that means that there's a subway station on 49th Street that I have to go to. But I put that in the maps, and when I got there, I came out the station and I just saw like nothing but Jewish people. So like at this point I'm like, okay, like I know this isn't Times Square. And like I was in denial at the same time. Like I was trying to like convince her like, no, like you're in the wrong place, I'm where we're supposed to meet up. But then my friend told me to meet her at the McDonald's nearby. And then I asked some lady where the nearest McDonald's was, and she said it was like a few miles away or something. So at this point I'm like kind of freaking out, and I tell my friend there is no McDonald's nearby, like where are you? And then she said, I'm at the 49th Street subway station, where are you? And so I sent her my location, and she started like freaking out, and I was like what's wrong? Like I'm where we agreed to meet up at. And then like she sent me her location, and I looked at how far away I was. So mind you, I had taken like probably a 30-minute subway ride to get to where I was at this point. So I start freaking out. I'm like, bro, like why would they do that? Why would they name their streets like that? They should know better, right? But I guess not. So I use Google Maps. Mind you, I've been using Google Maps this whole time, and I'm probably at like 30% battery by this time, and I'm not even at Times Square yet. So I hop on the subway, and we end up having a delay or something because somebody fell on the tracks or something like that. But I show up, and it's like basically already time for her to leave. So we just kind of like walk to like the main area of Times Square, and we take some pictures, we talked a little bit, and then she left. So I was on my own now. I'm taking pictures and stuff, and I reached a point where I had like, I think 5% battery left. I guess the responsible thing to do would have been to use that battery to find my way back to the apartment, but instead I decided to use it to find the nearest restaurant. I got like a vegan burger, then I went to Chipotle, and I got like 2 bowls there. Yeah, so while I was eating, my phone died. I already knew it was gonna happen, so like I wasn't like panicking or anything. I was still kind of like high off of the adrenaline of being in New York City, in Times Square, like a place, you know, I had seen it on TV, magazines and stuff, but I had never like even dreamed of actually being there. So that was surreal. But at this point, it was dark. It was probably like 8:45. So it was time for me to go ahead and head back to the apartment. So I'm like walking around. I can't even find a subway station. So I ended up going to one of those gift shops and I bought this map right here. And it's like torn into pieces now because it was raining. But I used this map to find the nearest subway station. At the subway stations in New York, or I guess it's like this in most places, but in New York they have like the map of like the whole network basically. So I used that and then I asked people and eventually I got back to Brooklyn. So once I got back to Brooklyn, I was able to kind of like guesstimate the area that the stop was in. It was like one of 3 stops, but I wasn't really sure which one it was. So I went ahead and went to just a random one and I got off and I was looking at the map trying to find the street that her apartment was on, because her apartment building like stood out. It was like a big brownstone. So so it's nighttime and I'm in the subway station alone, just looking at my map, or what's left of it, and it was basically just me and this one dude. He looked like he was probably about my age, maybe a little bit older, and he came up to me and he was like, "Bro, you lost?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to get to so and so street." And he's like, "Oh, it's just a few blocks down that way." So I'm like, "Cool, thank you." And so I started walking that way. Looking back on it, this was probably a really dangerous like situation that I put myself in. Like if he had a knife or something, he probably could have robbed me, but I didn't really care, to be honest. So I'm walking, but I'm looking at the street signs as I'm walking by, and I'm not seeing the name of the street that I was staying on. And so by this point, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. I'm thinking, you know, is this guy like setting me up or something? I obviously can't use my phone. After a while, I looked at my map again, and it turns out I was going in the complete opposite direction. But there was another street with the same street name as the street that I was staying on. I guess it was like an honest mistake, but it makes no sense that they would have 2 streets with the same name within like a few miles radius from each other. Like it just made no sense to me. I finally realized my mistake and started walking back the other way. Eventually I got back to the place probably around 11 p.m. I want to say. That wasn't the last time that I got lost, but I mean, getting lost in New York City is actually pretty cool because it's like no matter where you are, it's just something new. Like it's something that you haven't really seen before. So every day after that, I basically made it my mission to get lost. Like I would just hop on the subway and just go somewhere random, and whenever I got there, I'd try to find my way back. And that's basically what I did while I was there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I hope that it inspires you to travel a little bit more, because there's so much out there that a lot of people haven't seen. Traveling is good for you in every single way. It's good for the mind, body, and soul. Also, I think for the whole trip combined, I ended up spending like $400. So I mean, that's not too bad for like a 4-day trip to New York City. And that was me eating like expensive vegan food. So maybe you can eat cheaper or something. Yeah, I have no regrets about it. I want to go back one day. I will go back one day, except next time I'm gonna take you guys with me. And until next time, stay tuned. Peace. So we just kind of like